I always had to go back and say, they're just human, right?
Yes.
They're just humans.
Yes,
They
absolutely.
make mistakes. It might be intentional what they're doing, but I can't let them come in between me and my father.
Today, we're meeting Stesha, a young lady that I met not too long ago leading a class that really impressed me. And I invited her because she has this amazing experience from moving all over the place with her parents, from having a mom that was from a completely different religion, but today inspires her to be the leader that she is today. So, with you, Stesha. Stasha, I am so excited to actually talk to you. I don't know if you're going to remember, but I actually met you uh, at your church. I went there one day to visit, and you were teaching a class, and I was so impressed.
Praise the
So,
Lord.
so I'm actually really excited to do this with you because I saw like as you were speaking and talking, such a like leadership skills, like I was like, wow, I'm really impressed. So I'm glad you accepted to come and be part of our Tea Talks. And let's start with who you are. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate that. And what kind words. Well, a couple things about me. I have grown up all over the place, really. My parents are from Trinidad. They moved here when I was 2, and we have lived in Alaska, New Mexico,
Oh, wow.
Louisiana. We moved to Norway at one point, back to
You're not
Louisiana.
kidding.
Yeah, so all over the place. And now I'm in North Carolina, which I really love it here. I moved here because a lot of my family back in Louisiana had moved to different areas. So I have been here for 3 years or so now, and I really, really enjoy it. I love the outdoors and being in North Carolina, there's so many mountains and beaches and everything that you can imagine. So I've really enjoyed that, and I've really enjoyed connecting with my church family too here. So that is something that's really near and dear to me, and I, have not found anything else that I really enjoy more than being part of that church community and working with youth and young adults. And it's just been a blessing to me. And it really helps me grow as a person, not just in my career. Sometimes we talk about how who we are is what we do.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's not really who we are, right? Uh, I don't know. I'm a nurse by career, and this is actually my second career because I
Really?
changed after I graduated. I was a project manager, and then I became a nurse, and I've really, really enjoyed that. I really enjoy being in the community and helping people and working with my employees and things like that. My coworkers are awesome. So I've really enjoyed that. And my church family has really helped me grow in those areas too. You say leadership, and I just think about a spiritual gift of administration. And I really
Yep.
think that God has blessed me with that. So even in my work and my church family, that's really been something that I've been able to excel at because God has instilled that in me. So,
That is awesome. So Trinidad, I actually have a lot of friends from
oh,
Trinidad. And
awesome.
in my previous career, I also had a previous career. My direct manager was from Trinidad, and he was so much fun. So, and I moved a lot, but just 2 countries. My country, I'm from Brazil, and the United States, but all over the east coast of the United States. But you had some fun moves, Alaska and all of these other places. That must be amazing. How was growing up? So I wanted to connect you growing up, not only the different moves that you did, but how was spiritually with your family? Were they always Christians, or tell me a little bit about that?
So, interestingly enough, my dad, he grew up in the church. His family, they were very, very involved. His father was an integral part of growing a church in Trinidad, too. So, uh, his family was very much involved in different kind of ministries, music. They were all very musically inclined. So that's kind of where his background was. And my mother, she grew up in a lot of different religions and being exposed to a lot of different things, including Christianity. And when my parents got married, my mother joined my father's church, and she really embraced it. And I think moving all of the times that we have, being able to connect with the church and utilizing that community as a source for her really helped her. So my dad wasn't always involved in church all the time, but my mom, she really utilized that connection to be able to help foster our growth too. So
Did she became of the Christian denomination that you guys are before or after you were born?
she joined a church when in Christianity when my father and her got married.
Oh, okay. So for you, you already grew up with both of your
Yes,
parents Christians.
yes.
How did that make you feel? Like how was growing up like that?
I think it was just a normal part of our
Normal thing,
life.
no
Yes,
question.
like there was no question, and it was interesting because we were far away from our other family, we didn't really have the exposure to, like, my grandmother's a Hindu, so we didn't have exposure to that. We really only had exposure to Christianity, but like I said, my mom embraced it. That was a community for her, and I don't think we would have survived as well as we did and find community in all these different places that we lived had we not been able to find a church and church family and things like
Is
that.
there or was there friction between your family with the fact that you guys are Christian, but the rest of the family is not?
Sometimes there is, and that's going to come with the territory. Even those that, like my dad's family, they may not be in the church anymore, and there is some, tension there. But I think that for the most part, they look at me and they look at my mother and my sister and those of us that still carry the faith, and they're very much impressed by it, and they, you know, find a little bit of hope in the fact that we still have a faith. And I think over time it's going to reconnect them. I really pray that.
Yes, there is always that hope, right? Is there ever a time that you felt something, an event, or just a period in life that you felt closer to God?
Oh, that's so hard. Growing up in the church, you always have these moments. There's always something that happens, whether you go to camp or you go, to a there's different types of events that happen that are geared towards youth or young adults or even children, and there are times that you just feel extremely close to God because there's that connection with music or with study. And I think that has really over the years have kept me close, because sometimes you do feel far because your walk sometimes can be very lonely. Like, you can be part of a group of people, you can fellowship, but sometimes you still feel alone.
You can be alone with a bunch
Yes.
of people around you.
Right. And
Yes.
so for me, I think that there has been powerful moments of being very close to God, and then there are moments where I'm like, God, are you there? Like, what's happening? And a lot of the times it's because of the situations that you're experiencing in your life. If you're facing any trials or difficulties, sometimes you feel a little far, but sometimes it actually brings you closer. So
With that in mind, as a young adult, what are the greatest challenge that you have to keep your faith?
mm, the world.
Period.
Everything around you, especially today, like social media, and there's sometimes we depend so much on other people's faith to grow our faith, and you have to have a personal relationship with God. And we use outside sources sometimes a lot and maybe too much to help us grow closer. So we watch podcasts and we watch, different people preaching, or we will listen to, various things on social media, even like little tidbits of information. And you're
Instead of
like,
going to the Bible
instead of going
yourself.
to the Bible, right? So sometimes we tap into that and we're like, oh, that's so applicable, and I've said this to my cousin before. I said sometimes I look at things on various social media platforms and I'll send them to her and I'm like, girl, that speaks to me. And she's just like, yeah, it does. But when do we go back and look at the Bible and what the word says? It's okay for us to look at some of those things sometimes, but if that's what we're depending upon to grow our faith, we're not going to get very far because it only shows you a small
It's
portion of
that
it.
balance between it's not wrong to go in social media, but also it's that all I do.
Right,
What
right.
what when is my time with God? You
Yes.
know, when is my time to sit down and hear God talking to me
Yes.
personally?
And you have to have the one on one. You can't
Yes.
do through a different medium. You have to
Yes.
like go straight to
Actually,
God.
that's one of the things that Jesus said, come to me. And sometimes we go through everybody
Through
else.
everyone else, right? And we have that privilege, isn't, and that's what's amazing about it, that we can go directly to God and talk to him and be close to him.
It is truly amazing. It's interesting that you brought that up because I wasn't raised Christian. Um, and then at some point, I even became atheist. And with that, I ended up meeting a lot of people from different beliefs and all of that. A privilege that we have is that very few religions have this privilege of I can go straight to God.
Hmm.
A lot of the other religions, there's so much in between. You have to do this to come to God. You have to bring this offer. You have to, and there's everything else but going straight to God. So it is a privilege. Have you ever had moments where you had negative experience either with a leader in church or with the church itself? Did you ever confront those periods?
I think, again, being in the world, we're always going to
Gonna
face
have that.
negative
But is there like
experiences.
a specific moment?
Yes, I think when I was maybe my teenage years, I experienced a leader that I felt was hindering me
Mm.
for the benefit of their own family members. And it was hard because I saw how it affected my own family, like my sister, and, just those interactions where, the words that they say really do impact you. And for me, I always had to go back and say, hmm, they're just human, right?
Yes.
They're just humans.
Yes,
They
absolutely.
make mistakes. It might be intentional what they're doing, but I can't let them come in between me and my Father.
Yes.
And that's a hard thing to come to terms with when you're a young person, but also you you have to remind yourself of that. And I think my mother helped with that too. She always was like, if someone tells you something, you have to realize that they're a person, they're going to say what they want to say, but you have to remember why you're here and what your purpose is, and your relationship with God is all that matters. If they want to deter you, they can't do it because God's more powerful than them. And I think that sometimes we get a little confused because we think, oh, well, this person's a leader and I should follow them. But at the same time, that's not what a leader is. If they're trying to put you down, you have to make sure that you understand what a leader is and you look to Jesus because he's the ultimate leader. Like,
Yes.
it's anytime you read a story about Jesus and just the things that he did and how he led the disciples, how he interacted with the people that were around him, he was a true leader. That's why so many people followed him. Thousands of people would just be trailing after them because of the kind of leader that he was. He was a true servant. And I was thinking about that. We went on a camp and we saw with the children and the younger people, they look to you as a leader to be an example. So if you get down and put up a tent with them, that changes who they are.
Yes.
It impacts them in a great way. And you have to be a teacher, you have to be a servant anytime you're in leadership position. So when I think back on those experiences with the leader that I had, I realized that they had some areas that they needed to grow. So
I liked what you said when you said that he's human. I think it needs to have a balance. One side is we need to recognize, I think it comes with maturity, that you need to recognize that they are not God. Because
mhm.
sometimes because they're a leader in the church of God, we think that they all have to be perfect. They're not, they're humans. On the other side, we also need to acknowledge the pain of the young person or whoever it is that, okay, we need to acknowledge that there was a feeling, there was pain, but at the same time, give credit to the person too, in the sense of it's a person. And then it comes to, and this comes with time that you understand that I am not going to stay away from God or stay away from the church because of what one person did to me. So pretty much, I think you already answered, but I was going to ask, how did you overcome this challenge?
Yes. And I think part of it too is, sometimes finding other leaders who exude those qualities too. Um, and it's funny because growing up, like, I never thought of my mom as a leader because she was always very quiet and in the background. But when I think back of how she was an example, if we were hurt by somebody else in the church or if someone said something to us, she would always be very encouraging. She would always, try to make sure that we understood that it's not about them, it's about our relationship with God. And I think that was a huge thing, like looking to people who are going to support you, to people who will lift you up, and you will see that and use those people as mentors because they're going to be the ones that continue to push you forward. And I think that that's something that I've even learned in my workplace, a boss who or a manager who encourages your growth. And when you find those people, stick to them because they're going to be the ones that are going to help you in the trials and the struggles that you face in Christianity.
Sometimes the quietest are the best leaders, because a true leader leads from behind, right?
From the back.
Like when the curtain closes, is the people that is behind the curtain that are actually leading. I can tell that your mom made a huge impact on you. I was gonna ask if there is somebody, but is it your mom?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. I think that she's the one that even when my dad kind of fell away from the church, even though she was the one that joined the church after the fact, she continuously like pushed. And I think that sense of community that she felt, the friendships that she was able to find, the people who were, they always say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, in a church, that's a village. That's a great village with great values and morals and, character that you want in your children. So I think that she really propelled us into that and helped us to grow in the church. So yeah.
I was actually going to ask you, how did the church community helped your faith? But I think through your mom, you basically already answered that. But you can tell me about you now.
Yeah, I think for me, I've been living by myself since I was 18. I moved out to go to college, and I just never went back home because my mom lives in a smaller town. So there was really nothing there for me. So I kind of stayed away and uh, just go and visit and things like that. But one of the good things was that when you find a church that in, really embraces young people, young adults, people that are in college, that is the community that you need to stick with because what you see now in the church is young adults when they go to college, they stay away. And it's not until they have children or they get married to someone who's in their faith that they come back to church.
Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they don't,
Yes.
right? So what you when you find that, you embrace it. And for me, that's what I had to do. I church hopped. I did all kinds of things that I could do to find that community, to find a group of people that we could grow together. And finding that is so important. And I saw this video the other day where they showed these little spinner things, and there was one spinner that was stationary, it wasn't moving, and they threw like 4 or 5 that were spinning, and it would bounce off of the other one and the one that was stationary, and eventually the stationary one started spinning. So when you see something like that, that's why fellowship and community is so important.
I love that.
Especially when they're like-minded, right? You're going to always have people who are a little different, and that's okay because they bring new ideas, they bring fresh ideas, they help us to remove ourselves from tradition and from the things that, maybe are holding us back from growing in faith. And, community is just super important. You don't feel as loved when you, especially if you're a
You
single
don't feel
person,
loved if you're alone.
right? If you're alone. So being in a group of people that are like-minded and are propelling everything forward is super important.
In the church hopping and finally found a community, how did the leaders of the church impacted your decision?
Oh, well, they pushed me to be a leader too. So
And from hearing that, it's like you are committed and you're a leader in the church because you had that opportunity to be a leader. How was
yes.
that?
I think that's super important. So right now I go to a church that is very young adult led, and I think that that's so important to encourage young people to be in leadership because they're not the future of the church, they are the church. And we hear that so often, like, oh, the children are the future. No, they're now. We have to put them in the positions that allow them to grow and to explore the ideas that they have for vacation Bible schools or for, other classes or experiences, because that's what they understand. When I was 10, that is completely different than a 10-year-old now, and what they like and what they enjoy. So understanding them is by allowing them to lead and to be in a position where they can share their ideas. So I think that it's super important that we allow people to grow and not just have the older people always in charge.
What advice would you give to a young person who is struggling because they want to participate in church, they want to become a leader, but they're not having that opportunity?
Sometimes you have to leave your church and go to another
Sometimes you have to go
church.
to a different church.
Sometimes you have to go to a different church, but also I think talking to leadership and
Yeah, before going to another church,
yeah, for
see
sure.
if it's like they're not giving you the opportunity or it's because you never showed interest. Maybe
Right.
I think the first they need to be given opportunity of let me
Yes.
talk to somebody, right?
Yes.
But sometimes you're right. Sometimes it takes
Sometimes
going somewhere
and after
else.
you have to give everybody a chance. Like we talked about earlier, it's really a matter of sometimes people don't recognize where their downfalls are, where their shortcomings are, and bringing that to their attention. And I know that's hard for a young person, but if they're true leaders, they will be open to hearing what your perspective is. And I think that sometimes if we are a leader in our church, that we have to step back and say, okay, well, where are the opportunities to allow someone to lead, especially someone who's younger than you, or someone who, they're sitting in the corner, the quiet person. They have good ideas too, and they are able to provide a perspective that no one else has, because even though they're quiet, there are other quiet people too. And there are people who are always going to be loud, and there are always going to be the people who are extroverts and ready to take charge. But sometimes we have to step back even as an extrovert and say, okay, well, where can I give someone else an opportunity?
And for the church leader, what do you tell the church leaders to be able to help these young adults? That
a lot of the times it's a lack of education on a leader's part too. Sometimes those people don't have the tools that help them to open up themselves to saying, okay, someone else can do this, someone else can help with this. And continuing your education as a leader is super important.
be open to learn.
Be open to learn, be open to taking another perspective and saying, hey, like, there, I don't know everything, right? And being accepting of that, because sometimes as a leader, you're boisterous and you're like, oh yeah, I know how to do everything and I'm good at everything, but you don't. You don't know
teach
everything.
you know to the next generation.
Right. Teach what you know, but also continue to learn
Yeah.
and recognize where your opportunities for growth are.
Stesha, this was wonderful. I really enjoyed getting to know you a little more. And I hope the people that will be watching this will enjoy as much as I did. I love when I meet young people that are on fire for God and are leading in their churches. And I believe this way we will be able to inspire other young people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.